Para sa ilan, baka we're already over the worst phase in the COVID-19 pandemic. Although some would argue na habang wala pang vaccines, we're not out of the woods yet, and that there could be a real second wave by the autumn and winter of this year. Nonetheless, even if tapos na ang worst phase ng public health crisis and pandemic, the economic crisis is far from over. And more Filipinos are feeling very pessimistic about their future. During an event of the finance ministers on financing for development in the era of COVID-19 na naganap sa Washington, D.C. in the United States, ito yung sinabi ng Managing Director of International Monetary Fund. The outlook for a number of advanced economies is somewhat less bad than we anticipated. China has turned the corner and is recovering a little faster than anticipated. Nonetheless, sinabi niya, the crisis, however, is far from over. The recovery remains very fragile and uneven across regions and sectors. To ensure that the recovery continues, it is essential that support not be prematurely withdrawn. A massive policy response put a floor on the world economy. This included $11 trillion of fiscal measures. Nonetheless, the IMF chief has warned that the crisis is far from over. Dapat may continuous support from the government to ensure that magkakaroon ng sustained recovery not only this year but for years potentially to come. At the same time, the Asian Development Bank and the International Labour Organization has warned that the impact on the youth, people who are just new to the labor markets, is also going to be very negative. In fact, the international development agencies are talking about a lockdown generation. Ang kabataan na pumapasok pa lang sa labor markets and are facing very dire and difficult situation. More than 1 million Filipino youth could lose their jobs because of this pandemic in the short to medium run, and that could push the unemployment and underemployment levels to historic levels. Unemployment alone could reach 20% because of the pandemic among the youth dito sa Pilipinas, and underemployment could be even far worse. Kaya no surprise, according to a new survey by the social weather stations, mukhang marami ay nag-aalala for their economic future. Base sa isang July 3 to 6 National Mobile Phone Survey by the social weather station, mukhang 2 out of 5 adult Filipinos, or 40% of respondents, are worried about economic prospects for the country for the next 12 months. Meanwhile, 24% of adult Filipinos are expecting the economy to stay the same, which is not really in good shape right now, while 30% believe it will improve in the next 12 months. So in short, less than a third of respondents believe that the economy will do better in the coming months and year. Vast majority either think that it's going to get worse or remain the same, which in itself is bad because the Philippine economy is already in a recession. The Philippine economy actually shrank in the past 2 quarters, and its recovery has been among the most sluggish in the region. In second quarter of this year, the economy shrank by 16.5%, the second worst in the region just after Malaysia. Now, the last time we saw such bad numbers when it comes to economic expectations, ito yung panahon ng Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo around 2008 when we had the Great Recession. Ayon sa palasyo, ito na yung rock bottom. In fact, what we're gonna see is recovery. Kaya huwag muna masyado mag-alala. Ayon sa Presidential Spokesperson Harry Roque, ang sinasabi naman po ng economic managers, we have hit rock bottom and the only way to go is up. It will not be as bad, it will only become better. Ito ay ayon sa Presidential Spokesman Harry Roque. At ayon sa gobyerno, they are doing what's necessary, including economic recovery packages para mag-bounce back yung ating economy. But kamusta naman ang response ng government on the economic front? Back in March, the United States, a country known for dysfunctional politics and extreme levels of polarization, even they were able to rapidly pass a more than $2 trillion economic package. Ngayon, kung titignan mo yung performance of the Philippines compared to other countries, mukhang medyo mabagal at insufficient ang response ng government on the economic front. Some would say that our economic recovery program has been too little and too late. For instance, the United States, known for its immense level of polarization and dysfunctional politics, sila nga March pa lang, they were immediately able to push for more than a $2 trillion economic recovery program. Pagdating sa Pilipinas, it took all the way to August for the government to come up with something like a recovery program. But not only was this late, but it was perhaps too little. Based on calculations, including by the Department of Finance itself, our stimulus program was between 4 to 6% of our total economy or gross domestic product. Meanwhile, the comparable number in Thailand was close to 10%. Malaysia's was close to 20%. Pero yun nga, late pa nga napasa yung stimulus or recovery program, maliit pa. So hindi lang late, sobrang maliit pa yung stimulus program ng Duterte administration. And this is despite the fact that utang ang ginawa ng gobyerno over the past few months. And contrary to what Malacanang says, this is what top economic experts in the world are warning. As the IMF chief, Georgieva, said during a World Economic Forum meeting, though the world has learned to live with the virus, a full recovery is unlikely without a permanent medical solution. So habang wala tayong effective vaccines, it's really hard to talk about real economic recovery in the short to medium run. So perhaps it's better for the government not to downplay this, but to take this very seriously. And sana naman the stimulus program here in the Philippines is going to be more than just too little, too late. Pwedeng ayusin yan, but you have to have proper understanding of the economic crisis we're facing all around the world and its impact here on the Philippines, especially on the youth. So if you want people to be less pessimistic and more optimistic, the government has to be more effective and ensure that yung mga stimulus program na pinapasa nila is more than just too little, too late, but sufficient and successive. Ako po si Richard Hedarian. Stand with us, stand for truth.